Good morning, BNI, and a very warm welcome to all of our members. So, I have the real honor and pleasure of introducing Kishore Bhargava. He's a technology consultant with over 30 years of experience in the areas of network architecture, security, unified messaging, project management, IT planning, and strategy. I think the spotlight is on him. So we
Yes.
can just, yeah, okay, perfect. So, an early adopter of technology, Kishore is often found deeply engrossed in gadgets, gizmos, and new technologies. He has been the founder of several open source communities in India and a former contributor to several technology magazines and media. When away from gadgets, he is a keen wildlife enthusiast and prefers to shoot animals and birds with his camera. So that's a common point of interest that we have and a common hobby. So I
Nice.
love doing photography myself. So it's awesome to know. A self-confirmed geek, perpetual learner, and an aspiring coffee snob, Kishore is based out of Gurgaon in India. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge BNI clap clap in the chat box for Kishore. And of course, we can use that emoticon. So thank you so much, Kishore, for being with us here today, and
Thank
over to
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So like I said, I just want to quickly walk you through some initial numbers to give you a sense of what is really happening in cyberspace related to security. So the term cybersecurity is a very, very broad term, and it will mean different things to different people. But what does it mean to you as business owners, and what does it mean to you as individuals? It's very important to be looking at this because in today's day and age, you cannot ignore this subject at all. So just to give you an idea of what the market size is, if any of you are planning to get into the cybersecurity business, it's a growing market. It's growing at a rapid rate. In fact, these figures are already outdated. We are seeing companies invest absolute billions and billions of dollars in this area, and it's really really growing at a enormous rate. However, there is a problem. If you look at the other side of it, crime seems to pay better than protection. So right now we're looking at, and this is a figure as of 2 years ago, because that's the most recent report that we have on the total amount of money that has been extracted by cyber criminals. $1.5 trillion. This is literally, more than the GDP of several countries, and sometimes more than the GDP of several countries put together. So it's a massive, massive amount. And the reason this is the case is because a lot of people seem to take security very casually. Some of the times, the most common thing you hear is, "Oh, I have nothing to hide. Oh, why shouldn't I share my password?" Or I write my password on a little post-it and I stick it on the side of my monitor so that everybody can see it. These are very, very common occurrences. Life has gotten a little more secure than that. So it's not, the fact that you're not in offices these days, you're not going to stumble upon somebody else's password that easily. But even within your own family, you'd be surprised at the number of people, how careless they can actually be with critical information like passwords and other stuff like that. People also come back and say, "I have nothing to hide." It's not a question of what you have to hide or not hide. If I know enough information about you, I can actually take over your identity. I can take over your bank account. I can take over all your money transactions because everything has moved online. And there's no way that you can say, "I'm not going to do transactions online," because today it's the only way that you can actually transact and the only way that you can do business. So it's something that's become super critical. Very important for us to understand who the threat is and where the threats are coming from. I have a classic, photograph of what we would call a hacker. It's the pimply-faced youth in a hoodie sitting in a dark room, hunched over his computer. Gone are those days. Your hacker is unrecognizable today because he wears a three-piece suit. He walks into your office with the same confidence as everybody else does. So it's no longer that the threat is of somebody that you would be able to point out or immediately spot. In fact, I'll give you a quick anecdote here. For one of our clients, we decided to hire a few hackers and to test their security out. Uh, these hackers watched that space for a couple of days. They figured out that, okay, almost everyone in this office wears a white shirt, black trousers, polished shoes, has a trimmed haircut. They decided to approach the office the next day in exactly the same outfit. The guard at the door did not stop them. He saluted them and let them in. They came in and they settled down in one of the conference rooms and they literally just took over the place. They plugged in their equipment. They were able to take over the CCTV cameras. They were able to get passwords out of the receptionist. Because, one of the problems we have is as human beings, we tend to help people. So if I were to go to the receptionist and look very helpless and say, oh, I have a flight to catch in 10 minutes and, I need to print my boarding pass. And here's a little USB, which of course contains enough malware to do damage and let me take over your computer, but you don't know that. Would you please print this ticket out for me? And, the reception would very happily print out that ticket for you, but that also gives me access to their computer after that. And whether I'm in their office or out of their office, it's very easy for me to take control and then have remote access to that. So I continue to have access to that. So it's very important for you to understand the threat landscape, as we call it. So where does it start? It starts with a very, very simple thing, which is theft. Very interestingly, 2 years ago, there was a UK police report that actually showed cybercrime has overtaken physical crime. Why? Very simple. Sitting in my house, I can move millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars in the comfort of my home. Why do I have to go out and try and pinch somebody's handbag or, try and steal somebody's car? I can do it in such an elegant way sitting at home that I don't have to step out. And that's actually what's happening, that the crime has moved, as far as theft is concerned, has moved online, completely online. It's like, it's a new wave of crime. And I showed you the figure, $1.5 trillion is not a small amount. So, this is the kind of volume that we're talking about in terms of theft that's happening online. Theft starts with simple things like just stealing your credit card, your credit card information, your data files, your, any information. And whoever has the information is then in a position to bargain with you. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. They actually can then start demanding money from you to return your data to you. It's what we call ransomware. Ransomware is bad actors coming into your network, taking away your information or encrypting your information. Once your data is encrypted, the only way you can decrypt it is by paying the ransomware, and they will give you a key by which you can decrypt it. Last year, $17 billion. That's what we're looking at, was paid by companies as ransomware. The reason you don't hear about this too often is any company that's been hit by ransomware doesn't want it to become public knowledge, because for them, it's loss of face, loss of clients, maybe even loss of business. I mean, and, could be as bad as a shutdown, because, the amount of money that the kidnappers of your data are asking for is colossal. So, and it depends on the type of data. They've now gotten one step even smarter. They're saying, okay, we've stolen your data, we've locked it. If you don't pay the ransomware, we will now start publishing it. And they're actually doing that. They're publishing it on websites where publicly now your data is visible to the rest of the world. So you can imagine it's a really, really crazy situation to be in, where not only are you losing your data, but anything that's confidential in it is now just becoming completely public knowledge. So it's a bad situation to be in. Very recently, one of the large ransomware attacks that happened, which affected even companies in India, Cognizant, which is a huge company, got hit by this ransomware called Maze. And pretty much all their organizations across the globe, to recover, they paid anywhere between 50 to 70 million dollars. This is information which you will not find that easily, but if you were to Google it, you will actually come across some of the reports which clearly state that anywhere between 50 to 70 million dollars was paid by Cognizant in order to recover their data. And it's, again, like I said, it's no longer small amounts that we're talking about. Okay, so that was one one aspect of a threat. The next aspect of a threat is the device that's the most closest to you, your phone. There are applications on your phone, there are applications on your laptop, which are what we call malware. These are applications which are intended to do malicious things on either your phone or your laptop or whatever device you're using. There are a huge number of malware which are out there. The most common source of these is downloading pirated software or downloading apps which are not from the official stores of your phone, be it the Play Store or the App Store, depending on the device you're using. These applications contain bad code, and that bad code starts sending back information to the authors. It can be used in terms of advertising to you to buy services and products from them. That's the mild form of it, or it could be used to actually get into your bank accounts and snoop into other data on your phone. Just to give you an example, and you will see this on a regular basis, you will find that the Google Play Store keeps coming up with, we found the following applications as having malware, and we would recommend that you uninstall them. Interestingly, we're at a point where the government has gone and banned some of the Chinese apps, but I just want to point out one particular app in that. There's something called Cam Scanner. Now, Cam Scanner is a very simple application which lets you take a photograph of a document or a business card or a receipt, and it converts it into a PDF, lets you actually copy some of that text in terms of, it does an OCR, and it lets you then use that in other places. Now, the interesting thing is that Cam Scanner for the longest time has been one of the top apps. But what people didn't realize, that Cam Scanner, every time you use it, was also sending data back home. So the authors of that software were getting a copy of what you were scanning, be it a receipt, be it a bank account, be it somebody's business card. That detail was also going back to the authors of the software. So, that's the kind of thing that happens. And unfortunately, this is also true for apps on the Apple App Store. Although there is a lot more control, and you don't hear about this too often, because Apple actually controls their App Store very, very rigidly. So, they do have a little more control, and they control the hardware completely. So they're actually able to take action a lot quicker on some of these things. However, authors of bad software or malware are geniuses, and they know how to get across this, and that's the reason we have the situation that we're currently in. Of course, it would be very easy to say that just put antivirus software on your devices. While this is true for laptops and desktops and other types of computers, for phones, it's not a very, very good option that's available. In fact, it's only now that we're beginning to see some of the popular, by antivirus software manufacturers making software for phones. Till now, I would say that a lot of the antivirus software that's available for phones would only do one thing. It would slow your phone down. and it would provide zero protection. And it was, in my opinion, a bad idea to install such software. But some of the big names have now come in, including Microsoft. Microsoft just recently announced Windows Defender for Android phones. There's a lot of other products, and I will provide a list later to Anjali, which she can share with you as part of the resources of this talk. Okay, that brings us to one of the biggest challenges that we face today, which is what we call social engineering. So when I said the hacker of today is a suited booted guy, the reason is that they're not just hacking computers, they are hacking humans. They are actually working at, approaching you, approaching your organization, approaching you physically, which, okay, these days might be tough, but talking to you on the phone and getting information out of you. And like I said, as human beings, we are susceptible because we always want to help people out. So if I get a call suddenly saying, hey, I'm stuck, I need money, can you send me money? I'm stuck in another country, I need, $4,000, I need to buy a ticket. Sometimes we just don't think twice, and we take that action. And it actually turns out to be a complete hoax and a complete scam. So that's what you really need to worry about. When it comes to social engineering, one of the biggest factors, or one of the biggest scams going around, is what we call phishing. Now, phishing is a very simple process where you will receive an email which looks like a legitimate email, has a link in it, and when you click on that link, you've gone and given access to the bad actors to either your computer, or you've installed malware onto your machine by clicking that link, or one way or the other, you've been attacked. Interestingly, 76% of businesses last year were hit by phishing attacks in some form or the other. If you have managed to stay safe all this time, I would say continue to do what you're doing and stay safe. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to actually stay safe if you don't pay attention. Now, here's an example of a phishing email. The phishing email, and this is currently a COVID special, by the way, because FedEx, Blue Dart, DHL, and many other UPS, many other couriers are currently being attacked by scams like this. They're not the ones being attacked; it's their customers being attacked. Hackers have gotten in, pulled out their databases. They have, they have your address, they have your email ID, they have your phone number, and they send you what looks like a legitimate invoice. Now, if you're not paying attention to the email, you could actually say, yeah, I'm expecting a package from FedEx. Let me open this invoice and see what's happening. And the moment you open that invoice, in this case, it's an Excel file. There's a macro in it, and the macro is actually malicious. Now, a lot of people say, oh, when I receive an Excel file and it has a macro enabled in it, I don't click on that macro. It tells me Excel actually warns me that there's a macro, and if I enable it, it's going to potentially damage my machine. So what these guys have done is they put a little button there saying, click here to open the invoice inside of the Excel sheet as well. So it actually doesn't show you the invoice till you click that button. But the moment you click that button, you've gone and installed the malware. And from there, the story starts where your money starts leaking. Now, there was a time when it was very easy to spot an email which was a scam. You would find errors in grammar. You would find that the from address doesn't really match, the person who says it's sending it. So like in this particular case, it says billing online at fedex.com. It may or may not even be a legitimate email ID, but it looks like a legitimate email ID. And this is where the hackers are getting even more and more intelligent. They're actually going out, buying fake domains, setting up email IDs, setting up email servers. So there is a cost to doing this business if you're a bad guy. But the returns seem to be so lucrative that people just fall for this kind of a thing absolutely all the time. Another one of the COVID specials is meeting requests. So, in the early days of the pandemic, when we were still trying to get used to, okay, it's going to be, days and days of lockdown, lots of people started rescheduling meetings. And many of those meeting reschedule requests were completely fraud. So, I can send you samples of those, or I can, point you to websites where you can actually find some of those samples. But, that's how the criminals look at COVID as, oh, it's a crisis. Great. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So let's make money and let's see how we can make money and, better ways of being able to make money. So that's where it is. Now, here's an example, which is a very interesting example. I won't name the bank, but some of you might be able to recognize it. This bank sends you on a regular basis, email saying, "Oh, be vigilant. When you see an unknown link which says click here, don't click here." Then they follow it up with these do's and don'ts, that as to what you should do and what you should not do. But just look at the bottom of the mail. It says click here. Now, how do I know that this bank itself is not sending me something which is malicious? So I don't really. And the idea is that when you come across something like this, never click the link in the email. If you think this is a legitimate mail from your bank, please directly type the URL for your bank and go and visit the bank. So if it's citibank.com, then you just open your browser and go to citibank.com. But do not click on this. There's absolutely no need for you to click on links which come to you in an email message. And that's something that you should remember, because the moment you click, you don't know what all action could happen. It could take you to a fake website, and you'd be surprised at the quality of the fake websites. They are made to mimic the original websites completely. You know what they do? They look exactly like your bank website. It'll say, enter your username and password here. You enter your username and password. It'll give you an error. And then it'll actually redirect you to your bank site. But when it gave you that error, you've already given the username and password, and that's been recorded in a database and is now with the hacker. So that's how things work. So along with phishing, there's also something we call vishing. Vishing is what we call voice elicitation. And for those of you who have Netflix, I would recommend that at least go and watch the trailer of this series called Jamtara. I wouldn't advise watching the whole program, because, let's say, user discretion is needed, or parental guidance is needed, because it does contain foul language and a lot of other violence and other such stuff. But you should see how easy it has become for people to make a call to you, sound as if they're calling from your bank, extract the information from you, including your OTP. Your bank tells you, we will never ask you for an OTP over the phone. Yet, when you receive a call saying, hey, you won, this hamper from Amazon, and you're going to get a free iPhone 11, at that time you seem to tend to let your guard down, and that is exactly what they're looking for. So you need to be very careful. And voice elicitation has gotten to a point where, believe me, these people are voice actors. You will not be able to tell the difference between your bank calling and somebody who's just calling to make money out of you. They are really very well trained. Just watch the trailer of Jamtara on Netflix and you'll understand. Jamtara, by the way, is actually known for this problem in real life as well. It's not just the series. The series is based on real life events. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how do I know if I've been hacked, or what is the extent of hacking that is actually going on. Now, there is a website which is called Have I Been Pwned? So haveibeenpwned.com. If you were to go to that website and type in your email address, it will actually show you if your username or password appears in any of the databases which have been breached. So I did that for my email address, my primary email address, and I got results like this. Now, if you see, the first one says it's 500px, which Kritank said that I'm a photographer and I use 500px for sharing some of my photographs, but their database was compromised. Now, a breached or a compromised database means that hackers have been able to get in and pull out the entire database, which contains personal information. That personal information could be your name, address, phone number, email ID, sometimes passwords, not every time, but sometimes passwords. And if they have passwords in them, then this is where problem number one starts, which is, do you use the same password for all your websites? If you do, then you're in trouble. Because if I have your password for one website, the easiest thing for me to do is to try it on another one. And if it works on another one, or if even a slight change or a combination of that password works on another website, I will try it. Now, believe me, the hackers don't sit and do this manually because that's a waste of time. We have computers for that. Computers are brilliant at breaking into passwords, and especially if they are simple passwords. So when you hear people telling you, oh, you must have a complex password, it must be 8 characters, it must have an uppercase, it must have a lowercase, it must have a special symbol. Dude, that password takes a good modern day computer 20 minutes to break. 20 minutes. So it's no longer that 8-character password that is a good, strong password. It needs to be a lot stronger. And you can definitely not be reusing your password anywhere. Today I have, in fact, let me just quickly check because that's a figure that changes absolutely every single day. I think last time I spoke to Anjali, I said I had 500 and something passwords.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, so today it's 528 passwords as of today. And I can very proudly say that I don't remember even a single one of them. All of them are really, really complex. They're about 20 or 24 characters, completely jumbled up, nonsensical, unpronounceable strings, which I don't remember. And the reason I'm proud of the fact that I don't remember them is because I have a system which lets me remember them, and I will come to that in a while. But I want you all to, if you can see the URL on the screen in that browser window, haveibeenpwned.com. I want you to go there. I want you to enter your main email ID, and I want you to come back and tell me if you're actually in any of those databases, because then we can tell you what to do next. So you can do that whenever you want. Now, just look at what is the extent of that compromised databases. So here's where I actually like to do a comparison with the number of people on the planet. How many are we on the planet today? About 7.5 billion people. How many passwords have been compromised? 9.5 billion people. 9.5 billion passwords have been compromised because this is data available in a database which the hackers now have access to, and they will use it whenever they can. I'll give you an example of some which will directly, you might say that, oh, I don't recognize any of these websites written here, so I'm completely safe. No, you're not. LinkedIn was hacked. Zomato was hacked. Many of the food services were hacked. And then when you see a database which just, has a cryptic name next to it, it says, collection. Collection 1 is 700 million accounts. So, when you actually go and look at it, you will find that, yes, your name is in this database. If your name does not appear in this database, then you've done a great job. Then you've actually got unique passwords, and you've got, strong enough passwords which have not been leaked. But this leak is not due to your fault. This is a fault of the provider. I mean, there was a time when LinkedIn did a very, very silly mistake. 1.6 million accounts got breached. And if you're on LinkedIn, you would have received an email from them saying that our system has been compromised. We would recommend that you change your password. Out of the 1.6 million people affected, only 6,000 actually had their passwords compromised. So sometimes these compromises and these breaches don't directly lead to the fact that your password is available to a hacker, but it could be available to a hacker. So that's something that you just need to pay attention to.
Kishore, a lot of people have written on the chat privately saying, I mean, the eye opener, and I, out of fear, have not checked it right now. I'm going to do it later. Thank you for opening our eyes. And
Yeah.
I'm sure all the people on this call are actually now aghast to see what is the reality. And other
Right.
members
Yeah.
writing 13 places, 11
Right.
places.
Exciting.
Wow.
Anjali,
Very exciting.
I checked your BNI one. It's not pawned, luckily. The
Hey,
BNI
thank
ones are
you.
secure.
That's
I do
because
not
you
know about your
usually don't
personal
use
one.
that in too many places. So, you know,
Correct, yeah.
it's something, it also depends on where all you use that email ID. So, you know, if
Correct.
you
Yeah.
use it in a lot of places, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying by all means use it. See, the fact
Yeah.
that when I showed you the slide where my accounts are compromised, I'm not worried in the least bit, because for every single one of those websites, I have a unique password. And when that data got compromised or that system got breached, all I had to do was go back in and change the password.
Yeah.
None of my data was ever stolen out of that.
Mm.
Or if the hacker has that password, you know, it's of no use. I've already gone in and changed it. And I've changed it after the provider has put in the requisite protection into the system. So there's absolutely no problem at all. Okay, so you are literally as strong as your weakest link. And really believe me, the problem starts with you. The problem starts with you, and the problem starts with your password. Now, if you look at the two passwords that I have written out there, you would be surprised to know 123456 has been used over 2 million times by people as their password. I would not be surprised if somebody on the call also has used this password, maybe in something as trivial as the Wi-Fi router at home. यार कुछ आसान सा रखो ना जो याद रहे. So इसको 1 2 3 4 5 6 कर दो. You know. So that's absolutely the wrong way to approach a password. QWERTY, which is, you know, the first few letters on your keyboard, if you're using a standard keyboard, that's the second most commonly used password. But you know, when you start getting into more complex passwords, when you use uppercase, lowercase, it's a longer password. That's when you're actually providing yourself some protection. I'll give you a very interesting way to create your own passwords and to remember them. Take a favorite song of yours. Maybe take a song in a different language. For us, it's great. We can do Hindi songs. So take a Hindi song, take the first phrase of it, write it out, write the words out, capitalize some of them, put a dash in between. You've got a super brilliant password. One of my favorites is I star hate star password star. It's a brilliant password because, you know, now you don't know which letter is capitalized. I've got a special symbol, which is the asterisk symbol coming in every now and then. I can throw in a number at any point of time that I want. The computer will take forever to try and break a password like that because it's a long password and it's a complex password and it's easy for me to remember. So, you know, that's the way that you need to work with passwords. So, you know what we say about passwords? Passwords are like toothbrushes. You choose a good one, you change it frequently, you do not share it. You do not share your toothbrush. Do not share it with anybody, not even your family members, not your spouse, absolutely nobody. You do not share your toothbrush, you do not share your password. And finally, you use something like a password manager, which is what I use, and which is why I don't have to remember my 528 passwords. I just need to remember one. Um, what does a password manager do? A password manager is a secure vault. It's a vault in which you can put not only passwords, but you can actually put, you know, credit card information. You can put other information which you want to keep secure. You can put all of that into a password manager. Now, if you were to go and look for password managers, There's a lot of them available. All of them are cross-platform, so you can install it on your phone, you can install it on your tablet, you can install it on your laptop, be it Windows, be it Mac, be it Android, be it iOS. It works absolutely across. I'm recommending that if you're not using one today, please go and try something called LastPass. The free version of LastPass is more than sufficient for most people. They do have a premium offering, but I've never had to use their premium features. So this is something that I would recommend that you try out. Now, what happens with a package like LastPass is you need to remember only one password, which is your master password of how do I get into LastPass. And that's just one password you have to remember. You can forget all the rest because it will remember it for you. Wherever you need to enter the password, LastPass is available to you. It actually automatically fills it out for you for that website or for that service or for that account that you want to enter it. If you're at an ATM and you don't remember your PIN, you can look it up in LastPass and you can enter your PIN securely there. So it's a brilliant method to not clutter your brain with nonsense and free it up for more creative work and yet have a unique password for every single website that you visit. Now, usually in an interactive session, I would get the question here as, what happens if LastPass is hacked? Okay, great idea, great question. Okay, LastPass was actually hacked and has been hacked several times. The problem is that all of LastPass password data is encrypted. So even when the hackers get in, they're unable to decrypt your passwords. So they have files which are of absolutely no use. Now this works with a very simple concept of, a public key and a private key. I have a public key which is put on the server. I have a private key which is only with me. So even the providers of LastPass cannot actually get into your passwords to see what they are. It's people have actually gone back to say, I've lost my master password. How do I recover the data? They say, goodbye data. You can't get it back because this is the only one thing we asked you to remember. If you can't even remember that, there's absolutely no way to recover. So that's the only precaution you need to take. And I think you'll be absolutely fine. But please, please do use a password manager. Now, a lot of people tend to think that the browser, like Chrome, for example, every time you enter a website, it says, shall I remember this password for you? In some sense, it is secure, but it is secure only if others don't have physical access to your laptop. If I have physical access to your laptop, believe me, I will pull out all your passwords in a matter of minutes. It doesn't matter where you store them. It doesn't matter how you've stored them. If you're using Chrome to keep your passwords, it's a matter of literally less than 2 minutes, and I will have all your passwords out in front of you. So it's not a good idea to use the browser to store your passwords. It's actually it's trivial to break through that. So bad idea.
Kishore, can I ask you to pause? Charu, if you can hear me, I didn't understand the second part. Can you go ahead and unmute and ask your question to Kishore?
Yeah,
yes.
Please.
Yes, thank you so much, Kishore. You're opening our eyes literally right now. But so I was wondering, actually, you answered my question when you mentioned Chrome. But what I'm thinking is that when I install LastPass on my desktop, so will it prompt me every time to remember a password that I'm creating? Or will I have to physically go there onto LastPass and enter the password for, let's say, a Facebook account or an Instagram account?
Yeah. So what happens is LastPass is available both as an application for the device that you're using it on, be it a laptop or be it a phone. And it's also available as a browser extension. So for example, when I open Facebook, when it needs my password, there's a little button on the top right corner of my Chrome, and I just tap that and it enters the password for me. What it also does is it actually generates the passwords for you. And this is something that a lot of security experts have said, that you're relying on the algorithm of the password manager to create the passwords for you. So obviously there's a kind of a seed or a salt which can then be reverse engineered to try and make out what that password was. But the easiest answer for that is when LastPass suggests a password to you, change it a little bit. Add one or two characters of your own to it, and that will completely change the algorithm that generated it, and therefore it cannot be reverse engineered. But to answer your question, when you're at a website and you need to enter the password, be it on your phone, be it on your laptop, you can just press LastPass and it will enter it for you.
Thank you. And also,
and when you're creating a new login somewhere, it will actually suggest and generate the password as you enter it. What's more, it actually makes it very, very convenient for you to change passwords. So you know how when you go to a website to change your password, it says enter old password, confirm new password, and then reconfirm new password. So when you're in LastPass and you go through that process, it actually fills the whole thing out for you. It's a one click, all 3 columns are filled. I don't even know what my Facebook password is. I haven't bothered to look at it. And yes, I can go back into LastPass and I can click a button to say reveal or show me what my password looks like. And when I see it, I'm horrified because it's a long string of gibberish, which there's absolutely no way that I could remember it. So yeah.
There's also one more website that haveibeenpawned.com is suggesting called onepassword.com.
Yeah, OnePassword is a paid product. That's actually the one that I use. But it's a lot of people don't like paying for software. I work slightly differently. I find that if the software is really of use to me, then I'd rather pay for that service and get the support that I need with it, rather than just stick with a free package.
Thank you.
So OnePassword is actually really, really brilliant. Yeah, I can see another hand being raised. More questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Kishore. This is Mac. What about that Google password manager that I know you mentioned about Chrome, but Google itself has got their passwords.google.com. Is that something you recommend, or LastPass is better?
Yeah, no, they're when you start looking at the features between password managers, there's very little to choose from. They're not very different to each other. Some people feel that having passwords in the cloud is safer. Some people feel that no, the password should only be on the device itself. And like I said, since the password file itself is encrypted, it actually makes more sense to leave it in the cloud, because then, when I change phones, for example, or if I change devices, I just have to install that one package, give it the master password, and it's completely in sync again. And the same is true for Google Passwords. In fact, Google Passwords is also used along with Google Authenticator, and I'll come to that in a minute, which is the next step from passwords. The interesting things, and I must give you this little story about passwords. Passwords were never meant to be for security. Passwords is a 20-year-old problem that the computer industry is battling with. It's now become, it's only now that we are seeing things like biometric, be it a fingerprint, be it a face unlock, becoming a more secure process than passwords. And the reason is that passwords were actually created, invented, whatever you want to call it, to allow students at a university to manage computer time under their own name. So, computer time at one point used to be very expensive. And if you wanted to do programming, or if you were in a university which had a computer, then you would go up to the lab and you would enter your name and you'd enter a password, and then you would schedule your job, and then you would walk away. And that's what the password was for, so that your jobs could be uniquely identified, and that somebody else would not be able to log into that system and kill your activity, which a lot of professors actually did. And then they'd come back and ask you, why your work was not complete. But that was the reason passwords were originally created. So they were never created with security in mind, which is why we've had to go this route of create complex passwords, create different passwords for different sites. There's a lot of initiatives going around on this. And in fact, Microsoft is working very hard on, soon coming out with no passwords for accessing anything in Microsoft. So they will use a combination of biometric, physical device, and other techniques to actually provide you the protection, but not just a password or a passphrase. In fact, that leads perfectly to the point that I was talking about. It's what we call two-factor authentication. Now, when you hear the term two-factor authentication, it sounds very complex, but it's nothing other than when you do a bank transaction, you get an OTP. Till you give that OTP, you don't get to the next level in your transaction. That is the second factor of authentication. So it's something that you can now enable for a lot of services, for a lot of websites. If you're using a Gmail account, then it is now, I think, enabled by default. So when you log into Gmail from a different computer or a different phone, it automatically sends you a message saying, hey, is this you logging in? Or similar things. But you can actually go in and set this up. So if you take, this is a screenshot from Amazon. So you can actually go into your Amazon account and say, I want to set up two-factor authentication. And it gives you a choice whether you would like this authentication to come to you via SMS as an OTP, or whether you would like to use an authenticator app. And there are authenticator apps available, like there's a Microsoft Authenticator, there's Google Authenticator, and then there's a whole bunch of third-party apps which some corporates are using. There's Duo Mobile from Cisco, there's Okta, there's a whole bunch of them. But what these do is that they generate a number. So when you log into your account, you will see a number pop up on this app, and you enter that number in, and only then will you get access. So what this eliminates is, if somebody has my password, it's not enough. They need my password, and they also need the authentication token. So it's already providing a second layer of authentication, which is critical. And this is what Microsoft is actually planning to implement. They're saying that for a physical device, if the laptop is with you, then I'm okay to give you no password and let you use either your Face ID or let you use a PIN. So you can use a 4-digit or a 6-digit PIN. By the way, 4-digit PINs are, again, trivial to break. It takes a few minutes to break a 4-digit PIN. So if I have a 6-digit PIN, it'll let me enter the PIN, or it'll say your second factor of authentication is going to be your phone. So now somebody will need physical access to both my laptop and my phone before they can actually get into my account. One more layer. Okay, so once you've got your passwords all settled, you are more secure. But there's another thing that you need to pay attention to, and that is the websites that you're visiting. Are they secure in themselves, or are they insecure? So the good thing is that most modern browsers today warn you when you're going to a website which is not secure. When it is secure, you will see a little lock symbol in the top left corner of the location window. When it is insecure, it will actually have an unlock sign there. And if you hover your mouse over that, it will actually show you that that site is not secure. One very quick word about secure and insecure websites. Secure websites use a process called HTTPS, S for secure, known as TLS, transport layer security. I can get technical if you want. I can just leave it as HTTPS is what you need to use. Now, the interesting thing with HTTPS, and this is something that you can all try, if you were to visit this website called HTTP versus HTTPS.com, see how slow HTTP is compared to HTTPS. Now, I would have run this live for you, but I've just taken 2 screenshots to cut short that process. 17 seconds to open this website. The same website with HTTPS, 2.45 seconds. So not only is it secure, but it's also faster. And if you were to look at it, when you go to an insecure website, what it shows you on the top left corner, it says this site is not secure. Then it warns you. It says, since you're entering a non-secure site, do not enter passwords, credit cards, other such information. This website that I'm showing you is actually a government website. It's the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Ministry of Corporate Affairs, if you ever need to do business with the government, it's a website that you will have to go to. There are documents that you may want to download from there. You will create a username and password for yourself. As long as you create a unique password, you are fine. That password should not be used anywhere else. And if you ever need to buy a report from this website, the good thing is that when online transactions were approved by RBI, and this is quite a while ago, the one thing that they demanded was that online transactions will not happen on insecure websites. So the websites have to be HTTPS for a transaction to be able to take place. So when you're on the MCA website and you go to say buy a report, it will actually take you to a payment gateway. That payment gateway is running off an HTTPS site, so you will be secure. So you don't need to worry about it too much, but just pay attention to websites that you visit. Because if you're going to a website which is not secure, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to enter any critical information there. You can definitely browse, you can definitely go and read stuff on that site, but you don't want to enter any information or transact with that website in any manner. Okay, here's a term that a lot of people talk about and a lot of confusion about this. So some of these are, I'm moving into a section where because we're all working from home, things might be a little different to what they were in the office. I mean, if you've got a reasonable size office, you would have had a lot of computer infrastructure, maybe an IT person helping you, a firewall to protect you. But ever since you've moved into working from home, do you still have the required amount of protection? Now, a VPN is used for many things. VPN is virtual private networks. A VPN allows you to secure the traffic between your network and the network outside of your home or your office where you're transacting. So the typical usage of this would be if I want to access, say, my corporate network, I want to access a client's network, then I would create a tunnel using this VPN. And once that tunnel is created, all the data that's going from my computer to the recipient computer is going in an encrypted form. If there's a person in the middle, what we call a man in the middle attack, the data that they will get will all be completely encrypted. So there's nothing that they can do with it. So it just creates a secure tunnel for you in order to work. It also lets you do things like change your geolocation. So, sometimes people use this, or oftentimes people use this to view content which is not available within the country that you are. So, I mean, if you're sitting in India and you want to see what's on Netflix USA, you could open a VPN which will change your location to being USA, and then you would be able to watch Netflix USA content. So that's one of the advantages of using a VPN. The good thing with a VPN is the fact that the moment data leaves your computer, it's encrypted. And because it's encrypted, nobody else can do anything with it. There's a couple of free VPNs available. I would say avoid them completely because many times we find that the free VPNs are stealing your data. When you see stuff which is free, I would say, that's when some caution bells should actually ring in your head to say, okay, why is it free? Why is there a service which costs, even if it costs a little bit of money, why is there one which is costing a little bit of money and why is there one which is completely free? 1.1.1.1 is a service run by a company called Cloudflare. And what they've done here is that they provide you some amount of access for free, which is usually enough for most people. And if you want more, then you can actually subscribe to their premium service. What this lets you do is it lets you either on the phone or on your laptop or even on your home router, you can actually set up the whole network to be going through a VPN if you want to, and you can turn it on and off at will. So it just makes your data that much more secure. Okay, I'm going to move into a very interesting section, which is Wi-Fi. Now, we're currently in a situation where we're not traveling anymore, but believe me, if you're sitting next to me at an airport or a hotel lounge, then if I'm looking at my computer, I'm probably looking at your data and not mine. Because it's very, very easy for hackers to get onto your network, to your device, when you are on a public network. Today, because we're sitting at home, the situation is a little better, but you need to make sure that your Wi-Fi at home is also secure. Now, the default password on the router that is given to you by Airtel or Jio or anyone is usually, user ID admin, password. Very, very bad idea. You must go in and change that, because if nothing else, if I'm your neighbor, I will use your Wi-Fi. It's free. So why won't I use it? So it's very, very easy for someone to do something like that. So just watch out for that. Also, when you actually set up your Wi-Fi, you give it a name, you give it an SSID, and then you give it a password. A lot of people land up giving their phone number as a password. And the reason they give the phone number is because the minimum length of the password required by most routers is 10 digits. Your phone number happens to be 10 digits. So it's very easy for people to say, okay, let me give my phone number. But your neighbors know your phone number, or your neighbors might know your phone number, especially if your RWA is one of those nice ones which publishes a directory with everyone's name and phone numbers on it. So I now know your Wi-Fi password. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. It's the same level or degree of care that you need to take that you do for your login credentials. You need to have the same level of security on your Wi-Fi. And finally, a word on Wi-Fi security. When you switch your router on and you configure it, you will find that there are different kinds of security options that pop up. There's something called WEP, which takes 30 seconds to crack. There's something called WPA, which takes maybe 5 minutes to crack. And then there's WPA2, which currently is not crackable, but we're working on that. So for the time being, I would suggest that you please use WPA2 on your router. If your router does not support it, I would suggest throw away that router and buy a new one, because it has to have at least WPA2 as a security protocol. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. So in the lockdown, one of the most interesting things happening is people are sitting around and downloading stuff from absolutely everywhere. I got a call from a client of mine who was trying to explain to me, she downloaded a package called Popcorn Time. And she says, oh, Popcorn Time is great. It's just like Amazon or just like Netflix. It's totally legit and it's very good and it's very easy to use. And I said, it's completely 100% illegal. So what Popcorn Time actually does is it downloads a torrent client onto your machine, and then it goes and searches for torrent files of media of various movies, and then it brings them down and it lets you watch them. It does that in a beautiful interface. And yes, it does look a lot like Netflix or Prime, but it's completely 100% illegal. And the current client of Popcorn Time has malicious code in it, and it actually starts leaking your data. So be careful of what you download and where you download from. At this point of time, I would say only download from sites that you completely trust. If there's any doubt in your mind about it, please do not download it. If you do ever land up downloading something that you are not sure of, then please visit this website. It's called virustotal.com. In virustotal.com, you upload the file that you have downloaded, or you can enter a URL, a website, or a search term, and it checks. What VirusTotal actually does, it's working with all the antivirus makers. It scans, literally, I think the current total is a couple of billion gigabytes worth of space. I think it's 200 billion gigabytes worth of space that they have of files. It checks against all of them and comes back and tells you if this is infected in any way. And then at least you know whether you're going to be safe or not. So that's something that you must definitely check. It's a very, very easy to use website. Just takes a couple of minutes, but keeps you safe. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
So when you're trying to download anything like this, download first, upload here, and then install? Is that what you're trying to tell?
So if you receive something like an attachment and you're not sure of it, or if you've downloaded something and you're planning to install it and you're not sure of it, then you go back and upload it here. I mean, I would say if you're not sure of it, don't download it. but if it's already downloaded, it's already with you, then how do you make sure? Because look at it this way, you may have downloaded it, you may already have an antivirus or an anti-malware solution installed, but it didn't detect it. And not every antivirus solution is equal. So, when you upload it here, what's happening is it will check against all the major antivirus manufacturers. Now, I'm not going to ask you to go and buy all of them. So this is a quick check where, you upload the file here and it checks against a whole bunch of them.
Thanks.
Kishore, by the way, we're getting some raving reviews. Thank you for this brilliant webinar.
Here I was worried that you guys are going to hammer me for being... I also try to keep it non-technical, completely non-technical.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, we've talked about encryption, so I'm not going to talk about this again. But when you're worried about your data, then it's best to encrypt it. Now, on Windows, there is something known as BitLocker. On Mac, there is something known as the File Vault. On the phone, the moment you put in a PIN or a password or a pattern code, the data gets encrypted. Please use one of these methods for whichever device you have to encrypt your data. The beauty of encrypted data is that encrypted data is not susceptible to attacks from ransomware or other malware because it's already in an encrypted and jumbled up form. And in encrypting it using these techniques doesn't really cause an overhead because it doesn't slow your machine down, it doesn't do anything. And there's nothing that you need to do to unencrypt it. So for example, if you have a phone and you don't have a passcode on it, or a fingerprint or a pattern lock, that phone is completely unencrypted. If you drop it or someone steals it, they have access to all your data. But the moment you put a passcode on it, that data now becomes encrypted. So whoever gets that phone, the only thing they can do with it is wipe it out. They have no access to your data. They can wipe it out, they can change the IMEI number, and they can sell it to somebody else. That's all they can do with it. They're not going to get access to your data. If your phone is unencrypted, then they have full access to your data. And that's a scary thought. So do encrypt.
So Kishore, one question. What do you do after checking on VirusTotal? Just delete the affected document that has been downloaded?
So VirusTotal will show you a score against the file or against the URL that you're trying to click on. And if that score has anything in red in it, then just delete it.
Okay. And which antivirus do you recommend, Kishore?
It's in front of you. There are some questions I preempt.
I know, the ones which are going to be asked anyway.
Right. So there's a lot of antivirus software available. I would just recommend that you use something called Sophos. It's available both for the phone and for desktop laptops. It's very easy to use, doesn't slow your machine down. It's constantly updated. They take good care of you, when you use Sophos. There's both, free as well as small charge available packages. So choose what you're most comfortable with. One very, very important point that I want to bring across, and it's what I call updates. Your phone software needs to be updated. Your laptop, desktop, devices all need to be updated. If you do not update, you run the risk of being hacked. So whenever you see that update showing for your computer, yes, it's irritating. Yes, it's going to ask you to reboot your computer sometimes, but please, you must apply that update. Happens on the phone all the time, happens on Windows and Mac all the time, happens on your tablets, Android and iPad. So just pay attention to that. The moment you see that there's an update available, do go and update, because that's what keeps you safe. Those breaches that I showed you earlier, the number of breaches, almost all those breaches have taken place because of outdated software. Because when a hacker finds that there is software which is outdated and there is a known vulnerability against that software, they just break into that system. So it's the easiest way to break into a system, is to look for vulnerabilities and to look for old software, especially on servers. Happens absolutely all the time. You find a server which is outdated. Even BNI members can become hackers if they started looking at something like that. Not that I encourage it.
Kishore, if you okay, I lost my question. Hang on.
Okay, I'll give you time to reconsider.
Sorry,
but the second thing I want to mention, apart from updates, is backup. Absolutely, no matter what happens, you need to have backups. Today, backups have become a very simple thing by allowing you to do backups to the cloud. Please use either OneDrive or iCloud or Google Drive or Dropbox or anywhere that you want. Keep one backup in the cloud, one backup on a separate hard disk in your home, and one copy on your computer itself. One copy is no copy, because if you have only one copy, you are going to lose it. So backup.
Yeah. So Kishore, my question was that if people are using pirated softwares, you can't update them. So you're stuck with that version. Now, how susceptible
are you using pirated software?
A lot of people do. I don't.
I highly recommend that you don't use pirated software.
But software like Adobe, all these are so expensive.
Creative Cloud is a cheap subscription, 640 rupees a month. If it's being used by you for business, there is absolutely no justification for using pirated software. If you're trying to use it for like a hobby or a short-term just a trial, then download the trial and use it. But if you're actually making money of using something like Photoshop, then pay for it. You do two projects and you'll cover the cost of it.
Thanks, Kishore.
If you're not doing two projects, then you don't need that software in the first place.
A good one.
So finally, I would say stay informed, stay safe, and stay healthy. And if you have any more questions, I'm open to questions.
Yes, there was one for Facebook. So I'm just going to go up in the history and check. Also for Facebook accounts, what are the guidelines to set Facebook security for data privacy?
Okay, so for data privacy on Facebook, they've actually made it very easy. So when you go into Facebook and you go into your privacy settings there, it shows you exactly what other people can see based on a setting. So if you're comfortable with friends of friends can see my profile, then you leave that setting. Or if you say that only my contacts can see my settings or see my profile, then you close it down. So there's no magic bullet that I could say, shut everything down. Of course, the easiest is don't use Facebook. but that doesn't work. So just follow the guidelines within Facebook. There's enough and more there which will let you through.
And Facebook has a lot of apps and games. How about them?
Yeah, unfortunately, some of them are not very secure. So I would say go with trusted publishers only. I mean, if for example, Candy Crush is made by a certain company, you've tried their product in the past, continue with such a company. Don't just fall for every single app and game that comes up.
Anjali, Mac has a question, I believe.
Yeah, Mac, go ahead.
Yeah, how do you know that, Anupam? You hacked my brain.
I can read body language.
So, Kishore, sometimes when we go to a new website and you're trying to create an account, it says log in with Google, log in with Facebook. It gives you, throws at those prompts.
Yeah.
Or it gives you an option of creating a separate login with a sign-in. Is there any preference? Is that something we need to be aware of? Is it risky, not risky?
That's a great question. So the reason why they do that?
Probably to know more of my profile from Google or Facebook, right?
It's the other way around. They're actually too lazy to implement their own security.
Okay.
So the thing is that if you take a company like Google or you take a company like Facebook, they've invested a huge amount in securing and creating secure infrastructure. So along comes somebody who says, look, I don't have the money or the wherewithal to create such an infrastructure. So why don't you just log in with your Facebook credentials? So actually it doesn't share anything from your profile. It just uses that to authenticate who you are.
Okay.
Or that,
so there's nothing, it's not risky, right?
It just reconfirms that you say who you are.
Okay, got it. I used to always be wary when I'm giving off information from my Google account by clicking login in Google or login by Facebook.
I know. It seems very odd when you don't know exactly what's happening at the back end. So, very often I do the same thing that, for me, it's like, okay, it's going to be one more login ID and password, but my password manager will take care of it. So it doesn't matter to me.
Got it. Thank you.
So Kishore, one question is, can just clicking on email lead to breach of security or clicking on any link attached to the email?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what happens is that clicking on a link or clicking on an attachment in the email, there are methods of hiding malicious code within that link, and you'd be surprised at the amount of code that I need to be able to push malicious content to you. It can be so small, or what we call obfuscated code. It's a tiny little script, but by clicking that link, you've clicked that script and it's gone and done. It's not installed the complete thing. What it's done is it's installed the seed to go and get that stuff. So it's like I can, with a little link, install a small installer on your computer. Now, at some point of time, when you're not using the machine, in the background, it'll go and reach out to a remote server and then start bringing down the bad content.
So, but just reading an email, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes people say, even when you're reading an email, turn images off. Your email client has that option that don't download images.
Yeah.
Sometimes turning that off is actually a safer bet.
Okay.
So basically turn it on for trusted users and keep it off for all untrusted users.
Super tip. But there was a news of Facebook stealing our data.
Facebook is always stealing your data. Where is the doubt? So not only are they stealing your data, they're also giving it to other companies to analyze. Cambridge Analytica was one such case. See, the problem with data is, and it's getting tough for them. So Facebook actually had to pay a fine of $2 billion in the EU because of that data breach. So, if they hold the data, they can do whatever they want with it. Unfortunately, they're constantly trying to change their algorithms to be in a way that draws you in further. You know, have you noticed that you go to Facebook saying, "Oh, I'll just quickly check one or two messages and come out." 3 hours later, you're still there. But that's their plan. I mean, that's how the algorithm is designed. That's how, you log in and you'll say, oh, there's a post from Kishore. Okay, let me see what he's doing. Now you go there, you say, oh, he's posted a photograph of a tiger. And then you say, oh, you're going there. And then suddenly, literally you look at the clock and say, oh, 2 hours have gone by.
Okay, so Kishore, I used to
Anjali,
also
I have
wonder
a question
this.
after this.
Okay, so I used to wonder, Kishore, at the end of certain emails, click this to unsubscribe. And a member has also asked, I mean, what the hell is this unsubscribe? I mean, isn't it that they are reconfirming that this is an authenticated email ID?
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is. So in some cases, you will find that when you click on unsubscribe, it takes you to a page where it says, oh, sorry to see you go, kind of thing. Or it gives you options where you can say, I never subscribe to this list, or I consider it spam. In those cases, it's usually legitimate and okay. But in many cases, all that person is trying to do is reconfirm your email address. And once they have that confirmation, you're only going to get more spam and not less.
Anupam, go ahead.
So, Kishore, it takes only 1 week movement to make a mistake. And if one does click on something which has got malicious malware or software in it, what next?
You call me. No, so there's actually a lot of things that you can do. Most of the time, you just need to be aware of what the extent of the damage is. So there's ways of determining that. Obviously, you will, if it's on your laptop or it's on your phone, you have to get it off the network. It'll have to go into airplane mode, or it'll have to go no Wi-Fi. Then there are tools available which will let you examine what all is there and what all is not there. And yeah, I mean, in some cases, you may just need to go back in and start resetting all your passwords.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so another interesting question is, what is the way to have restrictions and securing all members in the family and business, because there are a couple of people who would be casual?
I would say the only way is awareness. See, the reason the crooks are ahead of us is because people are not aware. So you have to have awareness amongst everyone. It's the fact that it's casual is because people don't realize the extent of information that's actually out there. And the extent of information that is on your device. So if you realize the kind of data that you have on your device, you're not going to be casual about it. Okay, and the only way is like, showing people what can go wrong. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of stories of, even simple things like we attack our own clients. We attack our clients and we pull out data. And if I manage a successful attack, it's a question for the management to answer. How did you get through?
Wow. Okay, so
you won't believe it. It's actually become a business. We call it penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, and it's become a requirement for doing business with anyone in the EU.
Wow.
People actually ask you for a risk assessment, and if you got a third-party risk assessment done, and if you did, please share the report of that risk assessment and show us how you bridged the gaps that were shown.
Wow.
Otherwise, we're not doing business with you.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay, Kishore, instead of unsubscribing, is it better that we mark it in Gmail as spam?
Absolutely.
That's a better shortcut?
Much, much better.
Okay. So on sites like, say, Yatra, if I want to deactivate my account, it says the account cannot be deactivated as it contains your booking and transaction history. So how do I deactivate?
So that's a problem with some sites. And by the way, Yatra was also in one of those breached databases. So I think the only way around some of these is you have to contact their support and work with them to deactivate and delete the account. You know, many websites, they let you create an account, but they don't give you an easy option out of it. You know, it's your typical Hotel California.
Okay, so I have an interesting one for Outlook Express. Do we have a special screening software? My GoDaddy ID works on Outlook, but I get spammed emails which clone the administration team of GoDaddy. Can something be done?
Okay, so the idea is to actually do your first level of spam filtering at the server itself. So, you know, if you look at the way, you know, most corporates do it, is they subscribe to a service which will, all your incoming mail will actually go to that service first. And that's the best way of doing it. If you've already got the mail into your inbox, then half the battle is lost there.
Okay.
So you know, like a software like your Sophos or you know, one of the antivirus or anti-spam software installed on your computer is only the second level. But ideally, you should try and attack it at the level 1, which is at the server itself. And all these big guys. So I mean, in fact, even like GoDaddy, they will sell you an anti-spam solution, but the keyword there is sell.
Thanks, Kishore, for that. I hope Kshitij that answered. Okay, so a lot of people have bombarded me. They've been pawned. Now what? Ab karen kya? 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 5, 6. Mera ek hai, somebody just told me. So now what?
No, I think see, it's the idea behind this was to literally give you an idea, you know, tell you what's happening in the world. Yes, it's not going to be an easy path, but it's not that the solutions are not there. I will put together a small, you know, one pager which will give you at least some of the important links and where you can get some of the software and where you can, you know, check and test for some stuff. But you need to be on your guard.
नहीं वो तो आगे के लिए ना अब पिछले का क्या करें जो लैपटॉप में घुस गए हमारे ना चाहने से भी घुस गए.
You have to show it to somebody. You have to show it to an expert who will go and clean it out for you.
Okay. And I don't understand this one. Windows 10 background image tool can be abused to download malware, and that too without alarm. So this is totally new to me.
This is one of the reasons why I was saying that you need to do your updates. So what happens is that when something like this is discovered, you'd be surprised to know that Microsoft also is not always aware of the vulnerabilities that are in their system. It's what the hackers call a zero-day vulnerability. So a zero-day vulnerability is one where the manufacturer of the software has had 0 days to be able to fix it. And it's in that time that people go in and attack and make, you know, make their killing at that point of time. So the Windows background one was a vulnerability some time ago. It's been patched. So if you update to the latest window, it's no longer a problem. It's the same for Zoom. So we're using Zoom quite happily, and you know, I intentionally avoided the subject of talking about Zoom. But you know, 2 months ago, if you looked at Zoom, they had a lot of problems. But that's one of the good things about a company, and that gives you the confidence that how agile are they in terms of fixing their security problems? How proactive are they, and how transparent are they? You know, so if they come out with saying that, okay, we know that these are the problems and we're going to work on them and we're going to fix it, and here's the fix, you're okay.
I think every software is vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Hackable.
Absolutely.
It's
There is,
hackable.
I mean, see, don't underestimate the human mind. I mean, hackers are true geniuses. They look at the software from so many different angles that they will find a way in.
Mac, go ahead. You wanted to ask something?
No. I was just really amazed by the workshop today. I was just telling Anupam that we need to have a broader audience across India to introduce Kishore to.
Kishore? So, any member? Any last question? If you can just let me know
He
quickly.
just raised his hand.
Who would raise their hand? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, he's
Go
clapping.
ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, Anupam, have you got any question on your private chat in case somebody
No, Anjali,
messaged
not
you?
as of now. But Amit Palta is sure happy that he's using LastPass, which is recommended by Kishore.
Yay.
Charu has just raised her hand.
Okay, Charu, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just wondering this question, although Anjali, you tried to ask, that is there a way I can know where my email ID is being subscribed to? So let's say I type my email ID. Can I know how many places has this email ID been subscribed to? I mean, where all is this? Like,
That's a good question. I don't think there's an easy service which lets you find out where all it is subscribed. However, where all it is breached, you can find by going to Have I Been Pwned.
Okay.
See, there's nothing. I mean, okay, a good programmer could write a script which says, "Let me go and look at all the websites in the world and see if this is there." But the number of websites is just phenomenal. I mean, it's
like when you go on Facebook and you go into your privacy settings, it tells you how many devices it's logged into, isn't it?
Yeah.
Similarly, can't there be your Gmail that you can know where all it is subscribed on what sites? No,
because you could be subscribed to any site anywhere, so there's no way of knowing that. So even Gmail will tell you how many devices you're on, but it won't be able to tell how many websites you've entered that email ID. See the other challenge is that you may not have entered your email ID there. I may have entered it for you.
That's the whole point. That's why we need to go ahead there and unsubscribe.
So the only database which is currently authoritative is the breached databases of Have I Been Pwned. So you can at least know that it's in a database which is leaked, but where all you're subscribed, there is no service as of now. Maybe it's a good BNI business idea for somebody.
So Anjali, I have a question from Shikhar Gupta. Do we have time?
Yeah, go. I don't know. Kishore, do we have time?
Kishore, do we have time?
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you. So Shikhar is asking how to remove our data from where it has already been shared. As when I checked on haveibeenpwned.com, it shows my data is shared by Adobe, Yatra, and many other websites, which also says my password and data was also compromised.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's no way of removing that data because this is a database which just contains that information. So, for example, Adobe, the only thing you can do is go back to Adobe's site and delete your account or do whatever else you need to there. But there's no way of removing it from the Have I Been Pwned database. So once your name is in there, every time you visit it, it will still show you that it's in there, even if you go and change your password, because it's not a live database. It's actually a collection of breached databases. So if you see, for example, the one called Collection 1, Collection 1 is 700 million accounts in that. So, it's one large database which just contains personal information. And that personal information could be a password. In many cases, it could be an encrypted password. So in some cases, the hackers don't really have your password, but they have the rest of the information around you.
Shikhar, is that what you meant? Does it answer your question?
Well, the simple answer is no.
He says, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Kishore, one quick question. I remember reading a lot about the boarding pass and that barcode.
Yeah.
That you should not trash it and things like that because it has your data and it's going to be everywhere. So what's this boarding pass, that barcode all about?
I shred it. I actually shred it.
So it is true, right?
So it is, see, so that's how they identify you. You've seen that little barcode scanner when you're entering the gate.
Correct.
You put the ticket under that and it picks it up and it shows your data on the screen.
Correct.
So it is all your data about you. But it's the data that you've given to the airline. So it's your name, it's your sex and your age.
Even date of birth. Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be your frequent flyer number along with it. So
Anjali, now we have a question from the tech guys.
But it's not difficult for you to pick up somebody else's boarding pass and just use a barcode scanner on your phone and you'll get the same data. Try it with an Amazon package, for example. It's the same thing. It's just you just need a barcode scanning app on your phone, and in fact, these days you don't even need the app because the native camera of both Android and iOS now does barcode scanning.
Okay, so Anupam, before you ask, Kishore, lately, it was on the net and even a member has asked, have a phone for only your bank usage and have one for...
Yeah, why do you think feature phones are making a comeback? No, but I disagree with that. I mean, I don't disagree with it, but I don't think it's necessary because, see, if you take precautions on the phone by encrypting it, by having a PIN or a pattern or a passcode or whatever it is that you do biometric, then that's good enough protection on the phone. So then the only other thing it leaves is that, how safe are my passwords? So you do the password manager along with it and you're fine.
And should you have separate email?
I'm happy to give you my phone. You try and do what you want with it. You'll get nothing out of it.
I'll just make a phone call.
That I can give you my phone and you will get zero out of it.
No, I'll make an international phone call to my heart's content and you can pay the bill.
Those are free, so there's no problem.
Okay.
I mean, as a hacker, if I can't make free international calls, it's not worth it.
I love you for that, Kishore. And does it help to keep a separate email ID and a phone number for your bank accounts?
Okay, so separate email IDs have been a very, very long concept that a lot of people have thought about. Actually, it's a little better. You can do disposable email IDs. There are many ways. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, but your Gmail ID actually already has an extra email ID associated with it. So for example, my Gmail ID is kbhargav@gmail.com, but between the K and the A at the end of Bhargav, I can put a plus sign and anything in between, and it's still a valid email ID which will come to me. So it could be k.bhargav@gmail.com. It could be, k.bhar. And then at the end of it, I can also do a plus newsletter. So I can do a kbhargav plus newsletter at gmail.com. That email still comes to me. So I actually do that very often. Many sites don't like putting a plus sign. They don't allow you to put a plus sign in the email ID. But for those which do, it's interesting to see who all sell my email ID. So if I subscribe to a newsletter or I pay an Airtel bill, I give Airtel my bill as Kishore plus Airtel at linkaccess.com. So now when I receive an email which is not from Airtel, but it has come to that email ID, I know that Airtel has sold my number. Wow. And I can fight with it.
Wow, that's an interesting. So we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, it's endless.
Wow.
It's endless.
Yeah, Anupam, you had a question, I think.
I have a question from our IT guy, Amit Palta, and I really don't know why is he asking this, but Kishore, you will like to answer it. He's asking, how can we have some access to the dark web?
Oh, okay. So I would say dark web is something that you need to be very cautious about. The first thing that you need is you need a different browser. The browser is called Tor. Tor stands for the onion ring. And the reason it's the onion ring because there are layers and layers and layers of onion that you need to peel to be able to get in. But the moment you have the Tor browser, that's what lets you get onto the whole dark web websites. Now, the interesting thing with the dark web is that their websites are not, they're not classified, categorized, or easily locatable. They're all by way of IP addresses only. And in most cases, you will need an introduction from somebody else to get you onto one of those.
So it's in white only.
I mean, so if it's a drug site, for example, why would I let you in? Even though I know you.
So, Mac, you can unmute and pay that compliment to Kishore yourself.
I was just put on the chat bar as it's really an amazing session. I think I just mentioned that earlier. The best 90 minutes I've invested actually. I through
What,
so
we were
many
supposed
webinars.
to be only 60 minutes.
I know. We got extra paisa vasool. You know, Anjali always does that.
Right.
When you were talking about do not click links in our regular BNI meetings in our chat bar, we say click this link to apply, right? So now I was thinking,
So,
oh gosh.
So, the interesting thing which I didn't bring about Zoom, before Zoom fixed some of its security problems, in the chat box, I could actually send you a malformed link, which would give me your user ID and password.
Okay.
To your computer. So I would actually open your C drive or whatever local storage you have. That's what would open up on my screen.
Now they fixed all that, right, Kishore?
Just a malformed link.
But they fixed all that by now, right? The version 5 or something of Zoom.
Well, let's stay quiet about that.
Now Kishore is scaring us. Now it's getting scary.
No, but he assured me that they're, securing all the back ends as and when it comes to gets highlighted.
I think I'm just surprised that with all the other Chinese apps being banned, that they didn't ban Zoom.
Because Zoom is US.
They keep saying that Zoom is not Chinese. The founder is Chinese. He's based in California. And one of the initial problems with Zoom was that half the traffic was being redirected back to servers in China. And the traffic that was going to China was not end-to-end encrypted. So, which meant that basically the Chinese government could be happily snooping on those sessions. The point is that, yes, I mean, would they really be interested in a BNI session? They're most welcome to this one. I mean, there's nothing that we had, but but it does shake your confidence in terms of can I have a business meeting which is completely secure and remains confidential. So, which is why they said, okay, we're going to provide end-to-end encryption for our paying customers. But then they left it that the non-paying customers don't get that encryption. So your limitation of 40-minute meetings were going to be unencrypted. But I think they later on decided that, okay, it's not a good idea to not have the encryption, and then they added that back as well.
Great.
Kishore,
We had the same issue.
One sec, Max. In the backend settings, now you can choose your servers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually
That
Zoom.
really help.
Now you can actually.
That's more to keep some of the governments happy, because like the way initially the government banned the use of Zoom in schools and other places, that's because, according to the data privacy bill, privacy data for India should reside on Indian servers so that the Indian government has access to it.
Yeah, Mac, you were saying something, sorry.
No, initially we had the same challenge with Zoom, and then after our data security experts talked to them, all BNI's data is routed through the US servers or European servers for the GDPR compliance.
Right.
Yeah, and we all obviously have paid accounts.
Yeah,
from day one,
Yeah. So, okay, Kishore?
That's what I really liked about BNI Mac, the promptness and the alacrity with which they attacked this problem and got us onto the paid accounts. I mean, that was really heartwarming and very reassuring.
Yeah.
So Kishore, you were just talking something about Geo. So somebody is saying now we can use Geo Meet.
Yeah. So Geo Meet is so uncannily like Zoom. I mean, it looks as if they should have actually just called it Geo Meet, Geo Zoom. It looks identical, completely identical. there's already a lot of memes going around saying, good artists copy and better ones just steal. So
Yeah. So I think, guys, I think if we've come to the end of all our questions and we've had a great time,
Awesome.
I think we can all write clap, clap or thank you or whatever.